Hello and welcome into the Sporting Pod. Along with Mauricio Ruiz and Emerson Burris, I'm Cole Pepper. Tony Allegretti's on a big deal assignment today. Welcome, and coming up on the pod, we will discuss the two international preseason friendlies coming to Jacksonville, fixing the soccer calendar. Does it need it? Can we make it better? And inviting you to the final, we think, watch party of the summer. We are fed by the Bearded Pig, locally owned and operated, with the original location in San Marco. Make sure you swing by the Bearded Pig for great barbecue and great times. Tony isn't here to make the pig noise, and Emerson is not bearded.
And I will not do it.
So you can insert it there in your own mind. All right.
You and I both, Emerson, will not. I won't take that away from Tony.
It's his thing. You got to let him have something, right? All right. Let's talk first about the international friendlies announced this week for Sporting Jacks. We teased it a little bit last week. On Saturday, August the 2nd, the first home game in Sporting Jacks history will take place as Hibernian FC, the defending Scottish Women's Premier League champions, Hibs, comes to town to face Sporting Jacks at 7:30 at Hodges Stadium. 7:30 or 7? Now I'm questioning myself.
Now I don't know either.
Now I'm questioning myself. That evening, and then 8 days later, on August the 10th, Sunday, it's Wrexham coming to town. Mauricio, let's start with you. To have these two clubs coming in for preseason friendlies, both offer great storylines and a lot of interest. I think it's going to be a great way to kick off the club's play in the inaugural season.
Yeah, this is absolutely fantastic to have a club of this magnitude in Hibernia, especially with the season that they just had. If you're a traditional soccer fan and you know the two big clubs in Scotland and in Rangers and Celtic, but if you are a little bit more of an advocate, you know Hibernia is right up there with them as far as quality and what they've done. And the investment they put in women's football, showed last year by winning the Scottish Premier League. And so for us to have a championship caliber team of Europe coming here to start off our inaugural season, although a preseason game, and sometimes you can't take too much into account into a preseason game. From a footballing standpoint, that's a more impressive name than the Wrexham, which will follow shortly after. Obviously, Wrexham has a lot of the popularity in its name right now, granted, but Hibernia women are fantastic. They're going to come in and they're going to be preparing for their season as well. So it'll be an interesting matchup to see where Sporting Jacks land and what kind of roster it looks like when you play against a top team like them.
Emerson, I'm not sure if we talked about this. Have you watched Welcome to Wrexham?
I have.
And when you heard that Wrexham was going to be the team, what was your reaction?
I was definitely excited. I told my parents they're very excited. They're going to come in from Kansas for the game. So, I don't know a whole lot about Hibernian. I'm very excited about Wrexham, though.
Yeah, and just know, again, part of this, as we talked about, we talked with Stacey Balaam on Tuesday on the radio show about the tests that these will provide will be very different tests. Now, as you mentioned, Hibs comes in off of their best season in 18 years, winning the Scottish Women's Premier League. And, Wrexham is still in ascension, but they're not playing at the level that Hibs play at. So it'll be two different experiences out on the pitch, which both could be valuable. And I think the crowd, being able to play in front of crowds, we expect big crowds out there as well. That's going to be something for the young Sporting Jacks team to get that sense of what is it like to play in front of thousands of people, because
Absolutely.
A lot of these, especially college players, will not have played in front of crowds of this size.
Yeah, it'll be the first time, and we're talking about the roster makeup, and more announcements are coming daily here, weekly. Some of them will be brand new pros, and so to play against a team that just won a professional league, although in Scotland, it's going to be new for them. Not only the level we talk about oftentimes, Cole. What is the difference between a top college player and pro? It's the speed of decision making. Like everything you can do on a vacuum by yourself, or with a certain amount of pressure. When you get to the professional game, the speed of players and the approach, how they close you down, it's so much faster. And so it makes a good player be an average player and an average player be a below average player. So when you see those players, when we say, oh, the game looks easy to them, now they're fantastic players. Those are world-class players that they're able to still look like everything is easy to them at a high level. So our college players, the ones that are going to be first-time pros, that's what they're going to experience. The speed of the game is so much faster, and yeah, playing in front of a crowd, it's going to be even more of a pressure on them.
Yeah, and again, 7 o'clock, I've confirmed.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock starts for both matches. There are some ticket deals available. If you are an existing season ticket member, you don't need to purchase tickets for this, the International Women's Soccer Series. If you want to upgrade your seats or purchase additional tickets, obviously you can. There's also the Euro Pack, which is tickets for both games, and you get a discounted rate on those two if you purchase both of the preseason games if you're buying those individually. But again, August the 2nd, 7 p.m., Sporting Jacks against Hibs, and then on August the 10th, it's Sporting Jacks against Wrexham, and it's all part of the series presented by Visit Jacksonville. And so that's something that we'll be looking forward to. All right, that is one of the things we wanted to mention. We also want to mention that in general, season tickets are on sale for the USL Super League season. The season ticket, again, includes both of the preseason friendlies as well as 14 Super League matchups. They start as low as $10 per game for students. You have options for reserve seating, club seating, premium, and field side seating as well. Join the movement and secure your season tickets today. You can go to sportingjacks.com/tickets or call 904-863-KICK. All right, I want to get into something that Mark Warburton said on the Coaches Show presented by Sporting Jacks, one of our weekly radio shows. That was Tuesday on 1010XL. We were talking about the Club World Cup, and he is not a fan because of the impact that it's having on players' health. And Mauricio, he brought up the point, using Man City as an example. Here's Man City. If they wind up going to the finals of the Club World Cup, they're going to have like 3 weeks after that before these players are back on the pitch. Not even 3 weeks. Players are back on the pitch in preseason training in advance of the Premier League. So the question is this. Is the Club World Cup an important enough event? Certainly doesn't have the history. There have been other similar things, the Intercontinental Cup and so forth. But is it important enough going forward to have the event that teams and leagues should work their schedules around it? I just think about the teams that have played in Europe, UEFA teams who have played in Europe, as well as playing in their league schedules and then playing in this tournament. I mean, it is a grind, and obviously playing in the summertime in the United States or elsewhere where it might be held, the weather can be a factor. Is this a good tournament in the big picture for teams and players moving forward? And if so, what can be done to make it better?
Well, let me ask you a question, and I've seen different articles on this. Is it going to be a yearly thing or a 4-year thing?
So right now it's 4-year, but there has been talk, and Gianni Infantino has been pushing for it to become a bigger event and to become a more frequent event. Let's say, for the sake of argument, right now it's going to be an every 4-year event, and it will be held the year before the World Cup in the host city or host country or countries for the World Cup to help them sort of ramp up their logistics. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that's the plan moving forward.
Yeah, if it's every 4 years, I agree with Mark, and really everybody else is saying the same thing. For these top clubs, when you think about Man City, Bayern Munich, PSG, they're competing in 4 competitions throughout the year as is, and similar to the Brazilian teams, and they're playing in the Champions League, they're playing the FA Cup, they're playing your domestic cup as well. So when you get to the end of the year and you got to go play in another tournament, but if it's a 4-year cycle, each team is going to have to figure out based on the calendar. And a big issue right now, Cole, is that there are different calendars around the year. So the Brazilians right now, they're in mid-season. So for them, it's a bit of a ish break where they can take a month off, similar to the MLS. Liga MX have something similar. And then you have obviously Europe on a different calendar. So the issue between all of this is that you have teams taking this Club World Cup really seriously and they're in a position where fatigue hasn't kicked in just yet. And you got teams that are fatigued coming into it, playing in this heat, and as you mentioned, not having the break to then go into their primary goal, which is their regular season in August. So when you look at the issues around the FIFA Club World Cup, not everyone has an issue with it because it doesn't impact them the same way that's impacting some of the bigger clubs. The other part of it is this is financially really, really profitable for a lot of the clubs.
Yeah.
Just to come in, you get $10 million, 10 million euros. If you qualify, you get an additional 5. The champion at the end gets upward to 125 to 150 million. So now, if it's every 4 years, you can overcommit a little bit. You're going to be in it. How you manage, you have a chance to make an additional 150 plus all of the merchandise and all of the TV rights and everything else. You can kind of, add on top of it.
Yeah. Grow your
From a player's
brand.
standpoint,
Yeah.
this is terrible, right? But from a business of football, and we all know this is a business, from a business of football, this could be really profitable for a club.
Emerson, have you gotten caught up with the excitement of the Club World Cup? Has it been on your radar?
That's what I was going to say. I feel like there's not a lot of excitement, and it's been around since 2000. I was born in 2003, so it's been around most of my life.
It's the first year this year that it's been this kind of a tournament, $1 billion prize pool, all that.
But no, I've never paid attention to it until now.
Locally, and so this year, has it captured you at all?
I mean, a little bit,
yeah,
because of the position that I'm in and because of my job, yes. If I was not in this position, would I care? Probably not.
Yeah, it's hard. The other thing is it's on DAZN for most of the games. A few of the games have been piped over to Turner, to TNT. Inter Miami was on TNT the other night, I believe it was. So you can catch a couple of the matches, but you've got to subscribe to another service here that has made it somewhat difficult. I think it's going to be very interesting in the future to see where this tournament goes, because there have been a lot of criticisms of the heat and the playing surfaces and the crowds and the scheduling of some of the games. And obviously, when you're talking about expecting a worldwide audience, you don't want to put a team from, I'm going to use an extreme example here, but Auckland City, which is obviously not a big club, but they've been one of the human interest stories of the tournament. You put their games on at 7:00 in the evening. Well, what's that look like in New Zealand? So you want to be able to manage some of that. They've also, by the way, gone to great lengths to separate Boca Juniors from River Plate, playing Boca Juniors in the southeast, River Plate in the northwest. So you kept an entire country between those two fan bases. And as you mentioned, the Brazilian clubs have been in great form, Mauricio, and the Brazilian fans have turned out in force.
Well, as we're talking about, Emerson mentioned this tournament's been around, since 2000. I mean, growing up in Brazil, the Club World Cup used to be just Europe versus South America.
Mm-hmm.
And they met in Tokyo. And I remember as a little kid, I would be up into the middle of the night to watch the one team that played, whether it was Corinthians or São Paulo. They went to Tokyo and they play against the Champions League champion. Now that several years back got moved to the champion of each continent, plus a few clubs that got invited, and they moved it to the Middle East, and they started doing that. So this is a brand new addition to all of that. So the Club World Cup has a big meaning to South American clubs that have always felt a little bit oppressed, if you would, even though their players are the ones that are actually performing in Europe. Most clubs have a lot of South American players, but the clubs themselves always felt like the little stepchild to the bigger clubs. But now it's an opportunity for them to measure up and test themselves over a tournament rather than the one-off game. So there's a lot of pride to, you look at Fluminense and Flamengo and Palmeiras, they won this title. But does Man City really care about this title? Is PSG really worried about it? I mean, they're going to say it on the surface that they are, but it's the Club World Cup has never been a big thing for European clubs. So there's a lot more emphasis and a lot more, let's be honest, South Americans just party harder and they just, especially when it comes around soccer. So they're definitely putting on a bit of a show.
Present company excluded. We'll see how this develops. It has made, if you're just looking for soccer content. It has made for some interesting storylines and some good competitions, and some of the games have been great. And as you mentioned, seeing European teams playing South American teams, or seeing what Inter Miami with Messi can do, getting through to the knockout stage, that has done quite a bit. So it has been interesting. I think it's a positive from a fan standpoint. I think it's a positive from the club standpoint. I think it's a positive from the promoter standpoint, from a tourism standpoint. And I think Mark Warburton is right. Ultimately, the only group that it's not a positive for directly is the players, unless you have a very, very deep bench to be able to go to. All right, we want to remind you. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mal.
Yeah, just one final thought. I mean, I think you're going to see a complete different emphasis here going into the knockout stages too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because now it's going to be really competitive. Now you're going to get juggernauts from Europe that are qualified against the big clubs in South America. And then you're going to get Messi kind of, intertwined into that whole name, which he's a bigger name than all of them kind of put together. So I believe that the sentiment will shift a little bit as well once these games here in the knockout stages will start taking place next week.
I agree. All right, let's see. We'll continue to follow that on TV and on radio on the Sporting Jacks Report. 12:30 Saturday on NBC 12 this week. We will be moving around a little bit in the off season for the Premier League. Usually we would just lead right into Premier League coverage, but with the Premier League break, make sure you follow us and set your DVRs to find it whenever. We'll be putting out on social media as well each week when the show is airing. And every Tuesday night at 6, you can hear more from Mark Warburton and Stacey Balaam. We'll also start bringing in players who have started to arrive into town beginning this next Tuesday night at 6 on 1010 a.m. on The Coaches Show, presented by Sporting Jacks. You can listen live and on demand at 1010xl.com. And the Sporting Jacks Soccer Hour every Thursday night at 6 on AM 930, Fox Sports Radio Jacksonville. Mauricio and Becky Burley join me every week, and Emerson gets a little bit of time in there with the Youth Soccer Spotlight, including this week. Oh, my gosh, one of the sweetest things I've ever seen or heard uttered. So tune in to hear that one. All right, let's talk about the U.S. women's national team facing off. We're recording this on Thursday morning at the Gemstone Media Studios. Emerson is getting fired up already for the women's national team. Tonight they'll play Ireland, and then on Sunday, when we will be at Colhane's in Tinseltown for the final scheduled watch party of the summer. It is a 3 o'clock kick. Get there early, though. Suddenly, with the men getting all the way through to the knockout stage of the Gold Cup and the women doing what they always do and dominating, suddenly there's a big doubleheader coming up on Sunday in terms of U.S. national team soccer.
Well, I just want to say that I'm so excited for the women because two of my favorite players are back on the roster. Rose Lavelle and Naomi Girma were both injured and haven't played for the U.S. women's national team for a couple of months now. I'm so excited. They are two very strong characters for this team, and so I'm hoping that we get 3 wins.
I love watching Rose Lavelle play.
She's awesome.
She's creative and feisty and just goes. And I will admit, she reminds me a little bit of personality-wise on the pitch, the way my daughter is in the house. So we've had to give her a couple of yellow cards through the years. But she's so fun to watch. And then, of course, you also have some local tie-ins with Avery Patterson getting more opportunities, Mandy McGlynn in goal. Mal, though, let's talk about the men. Rather about the women facing Ireland. These are two decent rivalries or matchups, but then Canada is really the big one coming up later on this summer that is going to sort of be the main event for the off-season friendlies for the U.S. women's national team.
Yeah, these friendlies against Ireland, especially, we've seen them before when you play back-to-back friendlies against technically weaker opponents, even though nobody's really that weak anymore where you can step in at least with a high-quality team. But there's a good opportunity for Coach Emma Hayes to use some new players on the roster. I was listening to some conversations of older players when they look around and they realize that they are 10 to 15 years older than some of these new players that are coming in, and those players are fighting for their spots as well. So, the older players really can't even ease up, even though because there's nothing guaranteed. And I think that's a really good thing that Coach Emma Hayes has done. She's kind of shook things up a little bit where no one has a guaranteed spot. You got to come in, you got to perform. And so these 2 games are a good opportunity for players to solidify themselves, whether they're new or older, if they want to be representing against the game in Canada coming up at the end of the summer.
I will also point out, by the way, that on the U.S. national team front, Ashlyn Puerta, Sporting Jacks, one of the first players signed, has been called up for the U18 camp. So she'll be getting an opportunity there in Georgia to work with when the combined camp with the U18s and U19s. This is a player, by the way, who started her career at a young age at Florida State and then wanted to go pro, and we were able to sign her. And I know Stacey Balaam was very excited about her capabilities as a creator, as a very creative number 10 to create scoring opportunities and score for herself in the future for Sporting Jacks. So we'll be keeping an eye on what happens on that front. All right, guys, thank you very much. Good stuff today. If you want to make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you're not already. Please share it with your soccer fan friends. We want to continue to grow the population here, the community around Sporting Jacks. You can subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and most places you find your favorite podcasts. Leave a rating and a comment, too, if you are so inclined. And we'll rejoin you next week. So for the highly important and on assignment Tony Allegretti, for Mauricio Ruiz and Emerson Burris, I'm Cole Pepper. Thanks so much for listening to The Sporting Pod.